AI run the system and say it will end this way. We don't like this for two reasons. First, we know that it's impossible to predict the result of a complex system. And secondly, we would like to see the game. But why do we then think it will be possible to predict the next war? Because football is a simple game, 22 stakeholders on a field that are limited and with strict rules, instead of a war when there can be hundreds of thousands of stakeholders, no rules, and a very wide field. And I think we shall go back here because I think there is also the clue to this. We want things to be on the human scale where we can grasp them. And therefore, when we talk about what we can do, we can of course say it shouldn't be allowed or it shall be allowed, but I think we need more specific instruments than that. For example, or we need also instruments that are in line both with the juridical system, but most of all, we must, in the opinion, also discuss this, take it up to public discussion, because that's actually the first defense line, human beings saying, no, we don't accept this system. We would like to be in control. We would like to feel that we are the most prominent part of this. Obviously, AI could be a tool with some dangers. We talked about them. But I think that it is important that we go back to the human scale almost everywhere. One way would be to make sections. I saw a system in Sweden where they have what they call federative AI. Instead of running AI on all medical data in all hospitals in Sweden, they send out the AI to all hospitals and let them run the program on their data, and then collected results from all hospitals and run them together. It's a bit slower system, but that means actually that you don't compromise or disrupt the data because they are kept locally on each hospital. And I think this is an example where you can sectionize, and I think that's a good idea. And I think also that it should need a human step between those sections. I think you talked about keep the expert in the process. It's actually what I'm saying. A human being take decision on the next step, being responsible for this decision, instead of letting machine go to machine, go to machine, go to machine in a more or less uncontrollable chain. Same for when it comes to data. Do we need to limit the access to data? And what will that have for effects? We have a very open society today where we use the data for scrutinizing. But to scrutinize the government, you need to read the data, not to process the data. Maybe you can think there, how can we still allow the things we would like to have, but limit the unprecedented use of data? When I was in the military in my youth, then we learned that it's take a ranger to hunt down a ranger. Maybe we will have AI that can hunt down AI. Probably we need to create those systems in order to be able to identify, because it's sometimes garbage on a quite good technical level. And I was one asked if it's hard for me to detect fake news, and I said, I don't know. The one that I found, they were quite easy, but those that I didn't find and fell for, they were not so easy. And I don't know which one I fell for. And that's actually the problem. Therefore, we need another more different tool to try to find the data. Coming so far, I talked around this. Where or what can we do? Well, we can find the different legislations. We can try to restrict the use of AI. But at the end of the day, I think the only way in the long run to deal with this as parliamentarians, as role models, as human beings, as members of society is actually to keep an open debate, to always be able to stand up and to discuss these matters. Because if we prevail, if we surrender to the AI and say we can't do anything, then we can't do anything. But together we can, all who are politicians, all who are engaged in the society, we can stand up for the open and free society. We can stand up where we can discuss everything. We can stand up for the paramount values of democracy by debating, by understanding, and by trying to explaining and to walk in and work in line with the opinion. I'm actually optimistic to end with, but it takes for us not to only be interested, not to only be linked to the technical development that we like, but instead to stand up and say, I stand for the open democracy, I'm prepared to debate it, I don't trust anything from the beginning. I would like to be convinced on the human scale, regain the human scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ulrik Nielsen. We have reached almost 12 o'clock, but we can have a little bit more space for some Q&A questions, and I already see one in the last row. I don't know if you have a microphone or something. Yes?
We have.
And you have, and please say who you are and pose your question or your comment. Everything is welcome within the time limits that we have, not half an hour altogether.
I'm Ulises Cortés from Technical University of Catalonia. It's a question, comment for Mr. Nielsen. So I agree, we don't need to stop research. What we need is to regulate something that is very easy and is on the basis of all this. The day that someone that is producing a computer program has to sign for responsibility, as you do when you build an airplane or you design a car, an automobile, then the thing will be changing. So up to now, everyone can create a program, just put it there, and there is no responsibility. So just make all programmers, all these companies to sign for responsibility, and the thing will be over. Then we will have a progress, yes, but it will be normal progress. Not all this hype that companies try to bring us, and they want us to be at their pace, so you don't have enough time to reflect on what they are doing. Thank you.
Well, I think, unfortunately, there is one problem with your ID, and that's that rules are for people that would like to obey rules. There may be a guy sitting in Moscow or in Pyongyang or somewhere who don't have that rule and who produce information that will be spread out. And therefore, I think it's very paramount what you say. We shall have some sort of that system to have the accountability. But we will also need always to discuss the results and never trust them directly, because there will be people that are antagonistic in this, that are not following our rules.
Yeah, we fly Russian airplanes and because they respect the rules. So if we bring it into the market, this regulation, everybody should follow the rule.
I still don't consider it's a military special operation. I think it's war.
Definitely is something in process. Anybody else? I know that lunch is pending. It's close by, so we don't have to walk along. Yeah, please.
Okay. I also don't want to keep you from lunch, so it will be a short question. Yeah, I think we heard different speakers talking about the opaqueness of these systems. And you were saying, it's Mr. Dewberry, it's not acceptable to have opaque systems. And we can't have systems, AI systems, that haunt AI systems. And we've heard from another speaker that may be the way to go. So maybe you could say a little bit more about how to make sure that we have not opaque systems. How do we get insights and control over these systems as society?
Thank you for your question. Well, the first question is to know if your system is proprietary or open source. For example, to my knowledge, the EU Commission, when I interviewed some of their experts, they had developed their own AI system to process the comments published by citizens when they were doing consultation. And so it was their own system. They were completely aware of how it functioned and how it worked. And so they had also full control over the model and the data sets. So there was no such a thing as, in a way, opacity, as if you would buy a system from a company that sells you this model. The problem here that they were telling me about is that although they can actually understand how the AI model makes the decision, they have a hard time to explain it to the citizens. Because when you submit a comment, then how does this comment end up into the final report? And this part of the decision is done by an AI system. So when we're talking about opacity, there is this, yes, notion of transparency, of accountability, of auditing and all this, but there is also the problem of, okay, how do I explain this? Even if I show you the code, it won't be enough because, you know, it won't mean a lot to you or to me. So there is here, and I think my previous speaker spoke a bit about this, but there is really the need for us to actually find a language that is easily understandable by people who are non-expert and yet precise. The other point is about open source, and I'll finish with this. There is really the need to develop open source models. They are often a lot more reliable, they're not opaque, and there are different ways as well to develop AI, different AI technologies, some that are more opaque than others as well. So my point when I said this was we should not see this development as inevitable, in the sense that we can ask companies to develop models that are not opaque. That's what we should do. And the way they do it, well, you know, they're there to innovate, then innovate. But the innovation is like a plane, security by design. You know, you first draw the plane, well, you draw it with the security of the staff and the people on the plane. So it should be the same with the AI model. That was my point. I don't know if my colleagues want to add something.
Well, I think it's a good question because, again, we are dealing with two different areas here. Obviously, we have some who likes to obey the rules and to play fair, if we use that word. There, of course, we can ask for all this transparency and openness and accountability. But to hunt down the effects of AI from evil parts, then we need to have good parts also creating new tools to analyze the data coming from the evil parts. And that's actually was my point when I talk about maybe we need a ranger to hunt down the ranger. Maybe we need an AI system to understand when the Russian troll factories produce fake news via AI, and to see that maybe we, the good guys, need to create also the same sort of system. But it is a balance of terror, more or less, and it's an escalating, but we cannot, from the beginning at least, believe that everyone will play with our rules. They will play with rules they like to follow. And I think this is actually the problem. Then we need to sharpen the instruments too.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think this is a good moment to conclude. What we have seen this morning is definitely that with all the knowledge we have about what's going on, we will have to discuss this further, and including on what it actually means for democracy and our work. I think we have not gone into much detail on this yet, but there will be time maybe also at lunch to discuss this bilaterally and amongst us. In fact, we have been writing, like in the European Parliament Research Service recently, a briefing on this artificial intelligence, democracy and elections. And what struck me most is that right at the beginning there was a sentence saying AI is an opportunity to improve the democratic process in our societies. And then after that, it went on for many pages to outline all the risks. And when I then said, well, what about the opportunities? I said, well, you're the first one basically to turn out that there's not enough about opportunities. But I think we need to have a closer look what this all really means. With that, I'd like to thank once more all the speakers, the audience, and the organizers for putting together this program. And I have also the pleasure on their behalf to announce that there is lunch. We are all invited, and we are going to be guided to lunch. It seems to be somewhere very close. So, bon appétit.